All right, mine says it's live.
Woohoo!
Yay! Oh my
Mom
goodness.
miracles. Hi, I'm Mindy of MindyDayats.com.
Hi,
Finally
I'm
have my
Erica with
sidekick.
Love, Joys, and Sprinkles.
Yay!
Yay!
I love this coffee
Oh my
shop.
goodness.
Thanks for taking us there.
You're welcome. I'm trying to find kind of like calm, fun.
Yeah, where I'd love
places
to be
that remind me a
right
little
now.
bit of Austin, or what's that?
I said somewhere I would love to be right now. Working. It's funny that designing this life with working more from home, working more the way that I desire, came around about this time. Not exactly the working home I desire, but
right.
It's getting there. The universe is getting calibrated.
Yes, exactly. It's making it all fit. Yeah. Well, good morning. And I have shared in all the sharing places.
Yay.
Welcome.
All the sharing is done.
All of the sharing. I just realized my fingernails match the blue.
Nice.
I decided
mine probably, well, mine might match because my mug is slightly dirty.
Yeah, I was trying to channel the beach because that's where I would like to be today. That'd be wonderful. So I thank all of my friends that are posting, because I've got some friends that do live on the coast, and they'll post when they hit the beach and even do videos sometimes with the sound of the waves. And I appreciate it so much.
Yep, I know. I appreciate my main friends who do similar things on Instagram or here. It's good for the soul. Yeah, this landlocked lover or this landlocked girl misses her sea a whole lot.
Same here. I think I took advantage. I mean, I was young when I lived by the ocean, and I didn't realize
what you had.
Yeah, and how much it actually is a part of you when you, without even realizing it. So,
yeah.
And then I realized I was supposed to be going to San Diego in a couple of weeks. We were going to be going. So that trip has been postponed until October. So we'll see. But anyway, happy Sunday. We're running late. So, well, we're not running late. We were there at 8 o'clock.
That's right. Technology was not cooperating. So everybody's on Zoom. They're doing upgrades. Things are getting glitchy.
It is what it is.
But mom talk and a couple with my girl is very important to my sanity. Even when we post that we're going to talk about things I don't want to talk about. The things I do for you.
I'll be nice and easy. I'll be, so last weekend, I guess we'll catch everybody up and we'll kind of ease into a little bit. So last week was Mother's Day, and we talked specifically about being motherless on Mother's Day and the feelings and motion that kind of accompany that. And so we decided to also look at it, even though it's not Mother's Day anymore. I think still a good time to kind of utilize that same thoughts and kind of look at the other side of when you're not a mother yet, or I guess when that's the one thing that's at the moment not within your grasp, or something that you're really wanting. And I know that, I mean, and not everybody's path is unique when it comes to becoming a mother. You know, we're not even talking specifically about physically having children, you know, or just in general, the act of wanting to be a mother, regardless of how that comes about, and nurturing and kind of having those feelings. So I know, and not everybody does, right? And we're not here also to say that you have to become a mother, and that it's something that would also be another conversation for another day, maybe.
Yes. Yep.
Because I know a lot of people that don't want to become mothers, and they knew from a very early age that they wanted to become mothers or not. And I think either way, it's not wrong. And I think telling people who don't decide to become parents that it's wrong to not become parents is wrong also. Not judging people. Well, let's not judge people for just because they say. And I think people still resist, when people say, well, I don't want to have kids, regardless of whether the person's 10 or 30 or 50. It's like, there's always that pushback, right? Of, well, of course you did. Or, what do you mean?
Yeah.
But I think that's okay. We're not having that conversation necessarily today, or making judgment on that. It's just for a lot of people, the journey to becoming a mother is, I don't want to say easy, because it's not easy. The physical act of becoming pregnant is easier for some than others. We'll go there. So, and I think that's where that journey, right, can be more or less difficult, or perceived. All of a sudden, half of me disappeared. Sorry. More or less difficult than others. I mean, I know from a young age, I knew I wanted to mother and be a mother, right? I always wanted to take care of my cousins. I think the only child I never wanted to take care of when I was smaller was my sister.
Of course. Yep.
We're only 2.5 years apart. I know a lot of people that are super close when you're that close, or not at all. We weren't very close when we were younger. But other people's kids, my cousins, I always knew, right? I always felt, I guess I should say no, felt that was something I wanted to become. So that doesn't mean your journey is easy. I don't think anybody's journey to becoming a mother is ever easy, really. Because what is a mother? As I start to ramble, because apparently my thoughts aren't as together as I thought they'd be. When did you first know or realize that you wanted a mother?
I don't think I ever thought otherwise. I don't think there ever was the idea that anybody chooses. Like that was just it. I mean, I talked on my blog years ago about, like, I forgot to plan the rest of my life. Like I was going to be married. I was going to have kids. I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that was it. There was no, like, should I go to college or not? Should I have a job or not? What kind of things interest me? Nope. I was going to be married with kids. There was never any other thought. So this whole, oh, you're done with high school, or you're going to be done with high school. What are you going to do? Okay, I'm going to college. I'm studying journalism. I'm like, whatever. It was the next thing, because I wasn't a stay-at-home mom yet.
Yeah.
Like, it was just filling up time, because I'm a human and I'm an adult and I have to be doing something, and I'm not a stay-at-home mom. Like, that was, I can't say that was the plan, because it was never like a literally thought out, planned out.
You didn't have a 5-step plan.
It was, no,
a
no, it wasn't
timeline, like
even,
this by this by that.
No, I mean, I had this list, like, in high school of things that I was going to do. And I think be married and have kids might have been on there, but it was just like, well, obviously. And then these other things. yeah, it was just intrinsic, I guess. And I had, well, one of my sojourns from regular life, or I call this a couple of them a sabbatical. I got on the phone with my mom and I'm like, what the H am I doing? Like, I'm miserable again. I'm X old and I don't have a job. I probably didn't own a car at that point. I didn't have a house. What am I doing? And I was like, Mom, when I was growing up, what did you think I was going to do? Like, what traits did you see in me? And she's like, well, if any of my kids were going to have kids, it was going to be you. She's like, I seriously saw you with like a house full of kids. And I'm like, great. Thanks. Bye. Because
right.
at that point, I was alone, not talking to other humans, on the coast of Washington, cat sitting. Happy birthday, Annika. Like, yeah, it's like that's so far from what felt possible at that time. I didn't even know what to do with that information. But I spent a lot of time thinking about it after that. Like, what did that mean for what I should be doing with my time? When it's a degree or a job, there seems to be some clear steps, like you have to go to your classes, you have to get decent grades, you might want to get a scholarship, like whatever. Or maybe you have to start at X bottom rung on the ladder at corporate XYZ. And you come in and you log your time and you do whatever. But when your goal is to stay at home mom and you're 35 and newly single,
right.
I mean, matchmakers, dating sites, like, but you still have to sustain yourself. Like, you still have to find a job and a place to live and a whatever. And you're 35 and you're 35. So, oh, and by the way, doctors have been hinting and telling you and questioning if you can have biological children, right? So how did that all come together? And then every year you get to celebrate Mother's Day. You get to go to Thanksgiving and get pushed to the kiddie table because you're the only adult there that doesn't have kids. And you get to go to Christmas and buy presents for nieces and nephews. Mm-hmm. But nobody's buying your kids for things because you don't have any. And then you get to come around to Mother's Day. And granted, you won't probably, you might want to celebrate your mother and aunties and grandmas. And you should. But then there's you.
But then the other piece of, right. Well, and the other piece of Mother's Day too is, right, because last week we talked about that intergenerational message that comes out, right? And seeing the 3 generations or 4 generations of women. And I don't want to minimize that, because if you have that in your life and your children have that in your life, it's an amazing thing. But the other side of that is, the other message is the, dad and kids wake up. It's the day, one day a year that the dad and kids wake up and give mom breakfast in bed. I'm sorry, I'm not a breakfast in bed kind of person anyway, because the idea of eating in my bed always freaks me out a little bit. But that's the other message, right? It's dad and kids wake up and they make breakfast, and it's kind of a little sloppy, and it's not, but it's still perfect kind of thing. And they bring the tray in, or they, whatever it is, right? That's the other message of Mother's Day, right? And it's out there a lot. So when the other side is when you're struggling either through the journey of finding somebody to have that family with, or you have found that person, right? Dennis and I were lucky to find each other in college. It took a couple of years to get together. And then it took a few more years to get married. My step to motherhood was not easy. It was very long. How many people plan to have 10 years difference between their two kids? Not many.
Yeah.
You know, I watched many people get pregnant while I was trying, you know, that same thing, right? So while you're going through that and you're getting that other message of, well, the perfect Mother's Day is you get up in the morning and you get breakfast in bed and you get, I mean, if you listen to the commercials, right? You get up in the morning and you get breakfast in bed and you get that diamond necklace from the jewelry store.
And the kids with the weeds from the garden.
And the kids from the weeds from the garden. And then you go out and you go like hiking as a family all day. And I'm not saying that this is like my perfect day for Mother's Day necessarily either, right? But if you look at the stories, right? And then there's dinner, right? And when you don't have that, right? And I'm not saying you have kids, but you don't have that story. I'm saying you're trying to have kids and, you know, it's hard on your partner too, you know, and you're going through that and you're getting those messages all the time of, you know, this is Mother's Day, this is how you should be celebrating. And you're trying to get there.
Yeah. And I think I don't know that, well, I don't think that the messaging is necessarily wrong. They're selling a product, they're selling an idea, they're selling a feeling, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Can it be a trigger for some people? Absolutely. Do I think that we need to go into this all-inclusive or ditch Mother's Day? Not necessarily. No. But I think personally, we can give ourselves space. I think personally, we can make boundaries. I know people who have chosen not to be mothers, and they have very succinct statements to people who are kind of belligerent about it, you know, like, oh, you screwed up, you couldn't find a husband, you know, like, why wouldn't you, you're a woman, you have to, like, whatever their crazy statements are. And so they have over the years developed a, you know, frank way to get those people to shut their mouths. And I don't blame them. I got plenty of, you know, dear sweet old lady that I loved for years and years and called her grandma, came up and hugged me after church one day and asked, honey, what's wrong with you? I was like, I'm okay. I'm not sick. What do you mean? Why haven't you got married yet? She meant, like, why was I turning away like all the eligible bachelors that were coming my way, which was and she meant well, but still, like, do you really want to have somebody say what's wrong with you? And I know people who maybe weren't actively trying, maybe they were struggling in a relationship, but it was still something that their soul longed for. But it just didn't happen. It didn't happen before menopause came. It didn't happen before surgery came. It didn't happen. Maybe they found the love of their life after menopause, you know, like whatever. But they don't go to baby showers. That's their biggest trigger. They figured it out. They don't go. Doesn't matter who you are. Sister, cousin, niece, nephew, don't go. I even got to the point where I just couldn't hold new babies.
Right.
I'm happy for you. Baby is sweet. No, I would not kidnap your kid, but man, I just can't. I can't. I can't do it because I know it's not good for me. Because I will have to go through all of that longing, all of that questioning, all of that heartache. Again, it's not someplace that I can be.
And I think you said you hit on a good word in boundaries, right? I think in a lot of our life, we don't said enough of them anyway. And this is definitely one of those cases of, you know, I think sometimes when we are family or friends that are family, we forget that there's still a boundary on certain things, right? So the idea that we can just go up to our sister, regardless of whether it's by blood or not, and say, what's wrong with you? Why don't you have kids? Or even, let's say it's the wedding day. How many times, whether you're 20, 25, or 35, on a wedding day, does somebody go up to the bride and say, so when are you starting to have kids? Right? You don't know what their story is. You don't know, you know, even by 21, somebody may know that they either don't want to or can't have children, right? Yeah. So there's that boundary, right? We forget that sometimes there's that same, you know, it's a trigger for some people, and that we have to have respect for what their life's journey is, unless they're going to say, hey, I can't wait to have kids. We're going to start right away. We're going to do this. But it's not in our responsibility to get that information. Or even, let's say there is a newborn baby, right? I forget, I apologize, I should say, and I seek forgiveness from anybody that I even accidentally did this with my children, right? When they were newborn, and you have a newborn and say, hold him, right? And you push, right? You want to hold him, right? Auntie wants to hold you, right? As opposed to waiting for somebody to go.
Yeah, somebody.
Because if somebody honestly wants to hold that baby, being one of those that will do that, they will come in the room and say, give him to me, right?
Yeah. And that was me for years, because for years it was okay. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I was a nanny, you know, for several different people, and I loved taking care of their kids. But there was just a point where I had to admit it wasn't okay anymore, because the longing was so overwhelmingly huge. And some things had shifted, and it wasn't a good place to be.
And I think that that's okay. You have the right to make that determination for yourself, and hopefully we can start to get into that space of respecting when other people do that. And you don't have to announce it, right? Because that's the hardest part, right? Is when somebody does that, because it is hard to, you know, when you're coming out of that glow and you're trying to, which is also just exhaustion. And it's also oh my gosh, I've been holding it for 4 hours. Who here? There's somebody else. But also recognizing that, you know, yes, I may say, oh, don't you want to hold him? And you go, no, I'm okay. To then back up, you know, like recognizing those indications.
Yeah, and
without going into, well, why not? What's wrong, right? Back to
right.
What's wrong with you? Why don't you want it? Like,
yeah. And knowing, you know, like this person who doesn't go to baby showers, I could have been personally offended, you know, if somebody doesn't come to your baby shower or dodges the question, or, you know, like whatever. It's not about you, it's them. Mm-hmm. And not in a bad way. They're just not in that place. So what do I think about all of the years that I was not yet a mother and had Mother's Day? I think there were a lot of years that I didn't do a good job honoring my mother, because it was such a struggle for me to not be a mother. And I think that there were times when I could have given myself a better break on that day, and not not had any expectations, or allowed myself to not have expectations. Like you said, like you turn on the TV and, as soon as Easter's over, as soon as May hits, then you've got this barrage of advertisement.
Nan let me buy a new toy.
Nan let you buy a new toy. Well, there's a shocker.
A small one.
A small one. You want to say hi to Auntie Kirka?
Hi, Auntie
Hello.
And to everybody on the
Hello,
interwebs.
beautiful girl. You got a new toy, huh? Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Same thing with Holly, yeah. Hi. So,
Hi.
what?
You can go play. Mama's almost done.
Yeah, we're almost done.
Hey, shut the door. Can you shut the door?
I'll open my packaging.
Okay, you open the packaging. Unboxing, it's a big
Oh
thing.
gosh. Mm-hmm. What?
I'll come down in just a minute. I have no idea what that was. Something about boys. Anyway, you were saying something about boundaries and motherhood. Yeah.
Oh, what advice would you give for friends or family of people like to ask those questions, right? Is there an opportunity for them, or should they even ask the question or bring it up? Or how?
I think everybody's different. I think there are people that don't want to speak about it at all. And I think there are others that are like, if you're close enough to me, you already know the answer. And I think there are some that can appreciate a thoughtful, well-timed question. I think the biggest thing is just for us to sit up outside of these cultural norms and mores that say whatever, and to just be people in a relationship, to be respectful. You don't have to understand anybody else's journey. I mean, I come from a churched Christian background. I got married and divorced. I had a baby out of wedlock. I am a single mama. I had a baby at 39, my first successful pregnancy at 39. And so I don't fit the Hallmark channel, commercial, whatever, even as they try to diversify and broaden their.
But Mother's Day is one of those times where I see that there's less
diversification.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's Mother's Day and even Father's Day to some degree, right? You see less. Actually, yeah, Father's Day even more probably. You see less of that diversification, right? I think sometimes that can be polarizing to not.
Yeah. I mean, people are on all kinds of journeys, even if, I can think of, people that think IVF is an easy solution, or people who think adoption is cheating, or, you didn't have to be pregnant to have your kid, or people can be so weird and polarizing about becoming a mother, becoming a parent at all, having two mothers, having two fathers, having three mothers and a father, whatever.
Right.
I mean, I was a stepmom, and a very bad one before I was a mom. And that shaped a lot of Mother's Day too, because I was the stepmom that was involved in my kid's life. Well, in my stepkid's life. I was the one that packed lunches and was there. I was the one that went to the doctor. I was the one that read bedtime stories. I was the one that did all those things. I wasn't a good stepmother. I was angry and frustrated that I was in that position in a marriage that I shouldn't have been in. And so I wasn't a good stepmother, but I was a present stepmother. And I was the one that picked up the kid from school on the Friday before Mother's Day and got the handprint bouquet for mom. And there were times when the teacher either didn't care, didn't understand, couldn't let somebody do two. You know, there was one year, I think, where my stepson got to make a gift for mom and a gift for stepmom, right? But there were times that didn't happen. And so I got to pick him up from school and see this really cool thing that he made for his mom.
Right.
And then wake up on Mother's Day and make everybody breakfast myself.
Right.
You know, like, so everyone's story is different. And that's okay. And I think if you have the boundaries to say, my story is my story, your story is your story. I don't have to explain my story if I don't want to. And you don't have to understand my story if you don't want to.
Right.
Even if it's your mother, even if it's your sister, even if it's that crazy lady at church.
Right.
You know, no matter where the relationship is, there can still be a respectful boundary and a story, no matter what your story is. And so if you need to hide out on Mother's Day or Father's Day, especially, you know, you think of the mamas that are in the NICU or just lost a baby, and then Mother's Day comes around. You don't have to be present, and you don't have to explain.
Yeah.
In my world. And if you want me to tell that to somebody else, I totally will. And if you just want to share this video with them, totally
right.
fine.
No, I
Even
think
though
that's
it's after
fair.
Mother's
Regardless
Day.
of what your journey is. Yeah, I think that's a good place to stop and brings the point to good.
Let Mama Bear get out to the archery range with her kiddos that are waking up, and my kiddo that needs to unbox and unveil the new toy.
Well, and I think you actually brought it to a close very well. And I think, again, it's back to, in the end, we don't that trains us.
We don't determine when we get to be mothers.
No, we don't. We don't have to give anybody an explanation of our journey, right? They don't deserve the explanation. In the end, it's up to you. And
it's yours.
If you choose to share your story and you're in that place, then great. And there's nothing wrong with that either. It can help a lot of people, but it's not required.
Yes, and if you are I feel compelled, you know, there is this inclusiveness that there are people who act like mothers who are your uncle. There are people who are mothers that never have their own babies. There are people who are the best dang aunts on the planet, you know? And so it's not like I won the motherhood challenge and finally got pregnant, had a baby at 39. Like, somewhere along the way, I had to believe that I would get to mother, and I already mothered,
Ready?
Well, I think that opens another question though too. That's
In
been
my
kind of sitting,
hair.
and maybe a topic for another Sunday.
That
Maybe not
clip
next
was
Sunday.
with him. And he has his little desserts.
Did
His
you just say the
desserts are
clip was
stickers.
wicked?
That the clip was with it. Was
Oh.
with it. The clip came with her toy.
I heard the clip was wicked. I'm like, I thought she's been
You
in
do go to
Maine,
Maine.
not Massachusetts. I mean, I know you go through Boston. No, what I was just gonna say, maybe not a topic for next Sunday. Maybe we'll lighten things up a little bit next Sunday. But one conversation I was just thinking of, just kind of a transition from that, is something kind of from what you just brought up, is the evolution to motherhood isn't necessarily right. We talked a little bit more about the pregnancy and becoming a mother, right? Physically and emotionally, right? But at the other hand, there is more conversation to be had about becoming a mother
As you
and
grow yourself
mothering.
up as a mother. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Growing. Yeah. Because
So because like you said, not everybody who mothers is physically a mother either, right? We have a lot of aunties in our kids' lives that we're grateful for. I mother my, I mother other kids, or I feel like I do, because we are a mother figure, right? Uncles, mother, right? Depending on relationships. And so I think that's a great kind of conversation for another day too, about the evolution of mothering. And the mother I was for Harley at 4 is different than the mother I am at 44 with Ollie, or
yeah. Yep.
so.
Good idea. So, as always, if you have topics or conversations that you want to hear us yammer on about, go ahead and let us know. Comments are open over on Facebook and on YouTube when this posts over there. We are streaming audio into a podcast on Podbean if you want to listen. And so we're always open to hear and to interact and to grow with you. I'm grateful. I love the coffee shop. Can't wait to get in person.
See if we can find another one next week.
Sweet.
And I just realized, I do believe this may be in like Germany or something, possibly. It's overseas somewhere, which makes it even better. Bringing the travel in, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for joining us today.
Hopefully we'll be more on time and prompt next week, but we don't make any promises around here. Heinies need wiped and technology does its own thing. So
right, exactly. So thank you, and we'll see you next Sunday.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.